Okay, you are in the social, emotional, and engagement benefits of arts integration session, and it goes really fast, as you know. So I'm going to try and pack a lot in a short time. And this is one really quick session. And what we're intending to do at the COE is I'm starting an arts integration for social and emotional benefits so we'll have a monthly meeting. So at the end, I'll get your emails if you're interested in being part of that, where we just get together and talk and have a PLC, a professional learning community, where we talk about what we're doing and why we're doing it and getting help from each other, from our colleagues. So I'll talk to you more about that in a little bit. So I wanted just to read this quote to you. It's a powerful quote. Students are at the core of everything we do. Arts integration is about children and teachers in some of their most imaginative and creative moments. It's about teachers being dream makers and opening spaces and creating a learning community committed to educational equity. And that quote is by Meryl Goldberg, who wrote a great book on arts integration. And I want to share this quick video. It's a 2-minute video about the power of the arts with you.
It's easy to forget that drawing, music, and dancing are ancient forms of expression. They were present in our earliest communities, even when, as a species, we had almost no margin for error. So, what happens to our brains on art? Why do we engage in it at all? New studies reveal that the arts may prime our neural circuitry for a much broader range of activities, boosting crucial cognitive and social functions like focus, spoken and written language, self-control, and empathy. In 2016, for example, researchers exposed babies to simple melodies and found that it made them more sensitive to the underlying rhythms of spoken language. Brain scans revealed powerful responses in the auditory cortex of the infants, of course, but also recorded greater activation in the prefrontal cortex, the seat of executive functions like attention and self-control. Linking music to a set of cognitive skills that are amongst the most reliable predictors of success in school and in life. A 2019 study found similar results in adult musicians, but those weren't the only surprises in store for researchers. A high-quality 2019 study tracked over 10,000 students as they danced, performed in plays, or took part in music and visual arts programs. In addition to performing better on writing tests, researchers concluded they were better behaved, had greater compassion for others, and were more engaged in school. And there was excellent news in the visual arts too. A 2018 study found that drawing what you're learning is far superior to writing and also beats out other techniques like visualizing, even if you're just producing simple sketches. So asking your students to draw as they compose stories or learn about cells or solar systems should pay big dividends in the end. The idea that the arts are merely extracurriculars, while deeply ingrained, is also bunk. Increasingly, the research shows that the arts are powerful tools for making sense of the world, not so terribly different from, say, mathematics or the written word.
Every child has the right to graduate with an I can.
Okay, so I love that video because it's 2 minutes. It can be used for boards of trustees and for administrators because it really speaks to some data that helps support our argument and why the arts are so critical. We all know it. There's body research 30 years old with lots of studies, but somehow, as we all know, the arts keep getting pushed to the side, and we don't want to do that, especially now when we need to focus on our kids' social and emotional learning. And one of the things I wanted to say is I've witnessed and been on several 5, 6 student panels over this summer since the spring. And it's interesting because all the students, high school and middle school students, say the exact same things. They all say that they want us to engage with them, to connect with them. They care about the learning, but they care much more about the connection that we're able to make with them. And they feel like shorter bits of lecturing is much better, and then always following it with some asynchronous hands-on learning, whether it's an art project or some sort of lab for science. They really need those STEAM activities right now. And they also want empathy because a lot of them are working and or taking care of younger siblings while their parents work 8 to 12 hours a day. So it's very interesting to hear all of them talk about it. And they also said, the other thing they said is they want to talk about what's happening in the news. Like they don't want teachers to come in and ignore what's happening in as far as the racial climate and the justice issues coming up right now, that they want some ability to talk about it in some way, even if it's through journaling and sketching. So I thought I'd share that with you because it's so powerful. So today we're going to zoom through this agenda, which is the welcome. I'm trying to model using different modalities through Zoom as much as possible. The only thing I don't have you doing is getting up and moving, but I could if we have time. But using the chat, showing videos, we're going to work on a Padlet. We're going to do breakout rooms because we want to connect with our students in all kinds of different ways. I'm going to start in. I want you to take a look at this Venn diagram. So one side, the arts and arts integration, the other is the social emotional competencies and learning. And then the middle section of all the things that happen when you mesh these two things together: growth mindset and mindfulness, engagement, creativity. And I couldn't fit all of the things that, as I thought about it and talked to other teachers and administrators and read about it, all the things that fit in that middle section. And so those are listed at the top. And I think I can move this so you can see them. And what I'd like you to do is in the chat, just post, this comes from a strategy called Visual Thinking Strategies, pivotal questions. Just post what you notice about this and if you have any wonderings about it. So let's just take 2 minutes in the chat to post what you notice, what makes sense to you, and what you wonder about it. And you don't have to answer both questions, more than noticing. And then if you could take a moment to just write your thoughts, and it can be phrases or words in the chat. Keep writing in the chat your thoughts, but I'm going to address two of the things that came up really quickly. How do we keep this at the forefront? I think towards the end of the slideshow, I give some questions that I ask myself when I'm lesson planning. And I put that, it's like one of my top 4 questions that I always ask myself. Like I have to think about how I'm helping students connect with each other before I address the curriculum. How am I helping students engage with the material and just keep students engaged with me and each other? So I have cheat sheets and I have lists of things and Post-it notes everywhere when I'm planning. So that's one of them. And then the process piece, thank you for asking that. You're curious about that. When we talk about social emotional competencies and learning, we have to remember that we're not going for a win here during this time. We're going for a process of helping students develop their academic skills, and their social and emotional skills. And we have to see it almost on a continuum of where they come from and where we want to take them, and not get caught up in their test scores and their grades. Even though there's a lot of pressure on us to do that right now, I think we have to really hold that, but be able to hold their process of learning even more strongly. Thank you. You're putting wonderful things in the chat. Really insightful, I should say. So you can see from each other your thoughts. And I'm going to move on in the slideshow, but keep putting your thoughts in there. Okay. We're going to quickly work on a Padlet together. How many of you, just post in the chat yes or no, have worked on a Padlet before? Okay. Got a couple. Okay. All right, got one. So Padlets are really, really easy. And, oh great, so we got about half. I'm going to post the Padlet in the chat so you can access it. And what I'd like you to do is go there. If you could click on it and go there right now. And you should see something like this because the last group worked on it. And basically what I'd like you to do, if you've worked on a Padlet before, you know what you're doing a little bit at least. And if you haven't, basically see the pluses at the bottom. You just click on a plus and then you can write something. And the first two columns are about arts integration. And then it moves on to the social benefits, the emotional benefits of integrating the arts, how arts intersects with equity and social justice, and engagement. And what I'd like you to do is add something. And for those of you who've never done it before, you can see my arrow. You don't have to title it. You can just go to write something. And you can also go to the three dots, which lets you upload anything from your computer or search an image if you want. But for now, because we have such limited time, like this can be a whole lesson with students, and they love it because it's like a collage to them, where they all can post their thoughts about a specific subject area, or even in the morning, like a check-in of how are you doing? Post a picture and write some words. So if you would, those of you that know what you're doing, go ahead and post something under one of these categories. And for the rest of you who are new, just try clicking on the plus and adding some thoughts about any of those categories.
Hey, Audrey.
Yeah.
I've got some computer issues here. I'm trying to get into this meeting under a different account. Can you let me in the wait room?
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that.
No worries.
There you go.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And then for those of you new to this, if you just scroll up or move your cursor, you can see what people are adding. Yeah, scientific journals, nature journaling, kids love that. And it's done really well asynchronously, because you can give them the assignment and have them go into their yard or their front yard. It might be worth checking out the nature journaling stuff out there because it's really good for science, especially honing in on their observation skills. Has everyone had a chance to add something or play around with it? Give me a thumbs up if your camera's on, and otherwise post in the chat. Okay, great. Yeah, I highly recommend Padlets. You can only do 3 of them on your basic version, but then you do them and then you just delete them and you can do another one. They're super fun. Great way to engage students, to have them be involved in doing something where they can all see each other's work. And you can delete it really quickly if they're being inappropriate, which can come up a lot in high school, unfortunately. So arts integration. This is the definition according to the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. And basically, it's an approach to teaching that highlights creativity and a growth mindset. And when we talk about growth mindset, we're talking about social emotional learning. And I love this quick, simple definition. I've used it with other administrators, and it just tells you exactly what's going on. It's the process through which children and adults basically achieve those 5 bullet points: understand and manage their emotions, set and achieve their goals, feel and show empathy, maintain positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. And this all relates to growth mindset, as you can see, because we're trying to teach children about the process of their learning. I use this chart with the littles, actually even 6th graders like it, because kids, and we all get caught up in, I can't do it, I don't know how to do this, especially right now during COVID with all the distance learning things we have to learn. And I try and teach kids and adults who are gripped in the tyranny of now about the power of yet. So when kids say, I can't do it, I always say, yeah, you can't do it yet. Or teachers say, I don't know how to do this. Well, we're going to learn how to do it. It's just not there yet. And some of you might have heard this language before because it's been around for a little while. The other thing I like with this language is learning how to praise kids for their process. We call it process praise. So we know that praising kids for their intellectual abilities or their talents doesn't really take us where we want to go with kids. We really want to praise their hard work, their perseverance, their improvement, the process they're using to get from one point to another. The grade of not yet instead of an F. There's a cool school in Chicago, a high school, that decided just like 2 years ago that they're no longer giving Fs to their at-risk students, to any students. They're giving NYs, and they give them multiple chances to move from the not yet to the yet. And I thought that was a great story. And mindfulness works. How mindfulness work relates beautifully. It's kind of a big jigsaw puzzle of what we're talking about here today. Of mindfulness work fits in to mindset work because it's about the social emotional competencies of becoming self-aware and being able to self-manage. So that's how that kind of fits in there. What I love, I don't know if you're familiar, some of you probably, I know you are, with the Studio Habits of Mind out of Harvard's Project Zero. What's beautiful about these are that they completely relate to mindset, and to social emotional learning. So we want kids to develop socially and emotionally by stretching and exploring, by developing their craft, by being able to engage and persist. I wanted you to have this because kids love this, high school students especially do, and I try and have it in my background a lot so they remember where we're going, that we're process oriented. I wanted to also provide you with this continuum. I kind of created, or I've changed the arts integration continuums to creativity integration. And I think the main point of this is that we really want to increase student voice and choice in what we're doing. So when people talk about how do you integrate across the continuum, basically it's those short experiences exposing kids, like whether they're virtual field trips or whether we're having them do quick sketches of cells. That's the beginning part of the continuum, and we want to move so that we're having them create, perform, respond, and connect all the way. And a lot of times I get down on myself because I'm like, oh, that's kind of a lame art activity, but I'm at the beginning of the continuum. Not all my lessons are going to be standards based. in both content areas, because a true arts integration lesson that's also incorporating the social emotional competencies, you would have all those things happening simultaneously. And talk about overwhelming. So I just remember that I can keep throwing things out to students to engage and connect with them that are at the beginning of the continuum, but they're worth their weight in gold, because it will keep kids with you. You won't lose them. And I'm going kind of quickly because there's a lot to get through, but please stop me and ask questions along the way. And I was sorry I was not monitoring the chat, but I can do that too, so that you can write any questions in the chat as well. Another way, some people are more visual learners, so this creative process illustration shares similar information to the continuum and to the studio habits of mind. And it works for students, it works for teachers to think this way. Again, like we talked about on the continuum, it's a start to have students repeat or copy or follow step-by-step directions. But what really engages them is work that we're asking them to be original, we're asking them to be process-oriented, we're asking them to communicate and to develop their skills in inquiry and reflection. And even though it's hard for them, it engages them on a much higher level, and you keep them interested in what you're offering. This is hot off the press from New Jersey, and when you leave here, I would say if you're going to spend time on anything, spend time on this. So it's an incredible, I'm going to just click on it. It's an incredible tool that combines the artistic processes of creating, performing, responding, and connecting to the social emotional competencies. So if you look at the self-awareness, if I want to create a lesson and I want to really to focus on self-awareness, if I click on here, you'll see that they've unpacked, or they've included the essential understandings, EUs, and essential questions from the art standards, but they also have the social emotional competencies here. So the one of recognizing our feelings and thoughts, and then they've broken it down into early elementary. So having them learn what are negative and positive emotions, to the late elementary, situations that evoke positive and negative emotions, to middle school, to high school. And all of these things can be turned into lessons, which is what they're working on right now, is creating lessons that go with each one of these categories. And I feel like it is a gold mine to have this. So I would definitely say, check this out, and you'll have my slideshow, so you'll have easy access to it. And then, so I've kind of given you some background, more theory, but here's what I do when I am creating lessons or units. I ask myself, how do I make this more engaging? How can I connect to my students and have my students connect to each other? How do I connect to my students' social and emotional well-being? And I do this even when I'm creating a math and art lesson. I'm always thinking about how is this going to help support them with self-awareness, social awareness, building relationship skills. And how can I use an art form to make it more meaningful and to access their voices? And then, so there's my kind of 4 pivotal questions, and then I have 7 important considerations, including connecting to their background knowledge, which you can do so easy through a Padlet, to giving them voice and choices about their activities and products. And that's why UDL is I've hyperlinked Universal Design for Learning there, because that really speaks to that, about how we want to give them voice and choice to work in different ways to differentiate their learning. So I wanted to give you my kind of tried and true questions here. And then I'm one of those verbs people. So I have my 2 favorite charts that I use when I'm stuck in trying to figure out what do I want them to do. So I've included that for you. And then here's just some sites that have arts integration lessons that you might want to check out. And what I'd like to do now is put you in breakout rooms to have you talk to each other for 5, 6, I think 7 minutes we could do, about what you're thinking about this, how you're thinking of approaching this in your classroom, and to talk to each other about the ideas, the tools, the strategies, the intersection of social emotional learning and the arts and engagement for students. So, has everybody been in breakout rooms before? Sort of, a little bit, we're good? Okay, so I'm going to bring you there, and there we go. Going back to our breakout room, and I'm going to stop sharing for a second so that I can put you in breakout room so you can talk to each other. Okay, I'm going to send you there. I'll join you and talk about the ideas, talk about the intersections, talk about what you're thinking as we move into the school year. Oh, actually, put 4 of you together, but I'm going to leave it like that. Does that feel like too many? Just thumbs up. Say hi to each other, introduce yourselves. We're going to do it. Okay. Thank you.
This is my daughter's drawing.
Oh, that is so cool.
She does a lot of this is a werewolf. So she
Yeah.
has a drawing tablet and she does that on her own.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing that, Laura. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. Would somebody be so kind as to share what you talked about, just a couple of highlights?
We discussed the importance of the social emotional learning piece and the fact that students are craving connection and are looking for strategies on how to help make that happen with our distance learning classrooms. And then we also just shared some YouTube resources to help with the lesson planning piece, because there's no curriculum for distance learning since this has just been thrown at us. So we're all trying to figure out resources as a jump off place to integrate the art and the social emotional learning.
Are some of you being asked to do the curriculum that you normally would do?
Well, for me, myself, yeah, use it. Well, we've been told use the standards as the base. And from there, use the curriculum that we have to help support those standards if you can make it work for distance learning. And just, anything that you can collaborate with your peers, creative lesson planning, original lesson planning, share, but just use the standards as our foundation, the power standards.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. What school are you at again?
I'm at Happy Valley.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I still think Readers and Writers Workshop will work, and pushing for teachers to use that if they can.
Yeah, we will be using our both of those, Lucy Calkins Writers Workshop and
Yes.
our guided reading program in small groups. And
Yeah.
but it's that art integration piece. We had an art and music program at our school, but we're not doing that this year because of issues. So we need to get that to our students.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to write something down. And would there one more person would like to share? Oh, don't be shy. So you're being like your students.
I can share.
Thank you.
I talked to Audrey for a little bit about incorporating art with Spanish. I'm teaching Spanish at Aptos High School, so I created a little Google document and I inserted hyperlinks to short videos of artist biographies that the students can then watch. And then a lot of YouTube videos, or some of them have instructions on how to create art individually at home. So I would insert the link into that same document and students can follow along and create their own artwork. So that worked for some of the kids if they have access to materials at home, so they can follow a different person's direction and create their own artwork at home.
Thank you, Lara. And I'm going to screen share for just a moment. So one of the things that some of you might want access to is we have a Google Classroom of arts lessons, and most of them are integrated that you might want to have access to. So at the end of this, I'm going to ask you to put your name and your email actually in the chat, and I can send that to you and also send you information on our monthly meetings to help support each other through this time with social emotional learning and arts integration. And so that's what that's about. And then I wanted to give you some of the resources that I use when looking for lessons and looking for lessons that are specifically integrated in the arts. The one that I would recommend that you definitely spend time with is the Art Education Social and Emotional Learning Framework, the cellarts.org in the middle, because it gives I've just been studying it and looking at it, and it gives me lots of good ideas of lessons I want to do with my kiddos and with teachers too, to help support that social emotional learning piece. And then this is an arts education checklist from Arts Edge about like questions that I have my questions I ask myself. These are questions that they recommend you ask yourself when you're doing a lesson or thinking of creating lessons. And the last resource was, for those of you that know Sylvia Duckworth, she has written sketch notes for educators, and it's a great strategy to help kids, you put it in present mode, to help kids really, when they were talking in the video earlier about how drawing is so significant to kids' cognitive development. And so her thing is sketching and using words and little sketches, even if you're not good at it, to document your thoughts. And so this is a great example of that. And what I wanted to say is, in relation to what Kelly, what you were talking about, is how do you integrate the arts into what the lessons that you're doing? I think I shared, maybe it skipped. I think it skipped over these strategies, so I'm not sure, but did you guys see this? Okay, apologies about that. It's part of the slideshow, and basically these are like 11, basically 10, 11 tried and true, but we could develop hundreds of these literally, and I have with different teacher groups, but these are some that teachers are finding that they're using now that are being successful, using the visual thinking strategies. You can Google it, or basically it's about learning how to observe a piece of art. And art can serve as your text. Normally, like when we've been trained to do close reading with students, this is like doing close reading of a video of a dance piece or a close reading of a music piece, teaching kids how to really notice and wonder and what they think about what they're observing. I highly recommend always journaling with writing and drawing. And again, number 3 is using literature, paintings, music, dance as your text. 4 is using lots of role plays and getting kids to stand up and do things. One of the things I did recently with teachers is we all went into our gallery view and we just threw balls at each other, imaginary balls, because you can really bridge this almost 4th wall through Zoom or through Google Meet by connecting with your students physically. Having kids do mirror games in breakout groups, or human statues where they direct each other with oral directions of how to move their body to form a specific statue depending on what your content area is. Tableau are living pictures. It's a very popular theater technique, and it's been used in literature a lot. So I'm going to encourage you to look at that. And in our meetings, we could take any one of these and just kind of bust it open of how we could use it with different content areas. And then simple things like playing music and playing simple name games with kids. And even creating a class Padlet for 2nd grade up is a really wonderful way to do an art project, a collage digitally with your kids once you teach them how to use all the features. So those are some that I've just been using with distance learning myself to help support the arts. And there's dozens and dozens out there. And what I find to be most helpful is picking my repertoire and kind of repeating those so kids learn the patterns of them. They don't seem to get bored because when you change the content area, it changes the strategy a lot. So I hope that helps, so that makes sense. So I'd like to just open it up briefly for questions and answers. If you have questions, Kelly, I thought your question was great. If you don't have visuals, you can post it in the chat, but things you're wondering about or you want to share with your colleagues or questions.
Do you, like, when you're thinking about, so I guess something like the Padlet, to make original, like have students, young students, because I like the idea of them still having a paintbrush in their hand or a pencil or paper in front of them, instead of taking images from the screen and posting. Like, that's where I'm having a disconnect with the distance learning, is I want to try to get away as much as possible from virtual art per se and keep it as student created as possible.
Yes, and I can show you a couple of things that I'm going to grab an example. We did a construction, kind of deconstruction art project. I'm going to grab one more thing for you.
Okay.
With a group of kids. And it was about like making something and tearing it up, and we did it on Zoom with in gallery view. And so this is one of the examples. Oh, wait, hang on, let me find where I can show it to you. So it was just paper at home, any kind of paper, the newspaper, anything that the kid could find. And then they made something, they tore it. So the process of tearing it up and deconstructing your art and really tapping into how we feel like that right now, like everything's kind of falling apart, and then reconstructing and making something else. Sorry, it keeps going in and out. There we go. So, and then the other thing we did was we were studying macrame with the kids because it's ancient, and we were actually able to help them do just using big beads. We've been like PVUSD, we were able to deliver bags of materials to kids, and that's been happening for the last couple of weeks to their families with food deliveries. So they pick up a bag for their kids, depending on their age level. This was a middle school, and teaching them to macrame. So we're just on Zoom or Google Meet together, and we're actually just doing an art project together, and then holding up our artwork for each other. If they don't use a virtual background, then you can see the art a lot better.
Right.
Yeah, but they do have to come on camera. If they don't want to show their face, they can just put their artwork in front of their face. But those are like two simple examples of how you can do that. And there's a lot of teachers doing dance parties out there too, just like even for 20 minutes, like Fun Fridays, where they just get all the kids together and have a dance party playing different kinds of music.
Yeah, you could do like freeze dance. That's always a fun one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's stop and go games kind of, yeah, freeze dance.
So
Yeah.
I guess all the STEAM activities that you'd normally be doing in class, you could do just in person as a lesson.
Yeah.
As a community, and
Yeah.
then show your work.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing kids like to do is they like technology a lot of times more than we do, but they can take a picture using a phone, and then they can upload their picture to anything you're doing digitally.
I liked the idea of deconstructing the paper to kind of match the emotional piece, and then reconstructing and rebuilding.
Yeah, and the macrame, there's a very ancient history of macrame, and so it's reminding kids that that we're living through history, and that there's these historical markers, and so kind of studying the geography, the countries where macrame, where the art form came from, and what the people had lived through, and how we're doing that now. So great. We're going to have to end, but what I'd like to ask, if you want to be part of our monthly kind of check-in group where we'll have different teachers offering things they're doing, please put your name, your email in the chat. And I'll make sure and get that information to you. Great. Okay, oops, I'm running a little late. All right, Kelly, thank you so much, and Laura, and I will stay in touch with you for sure.
And you're going to post the Google Slides. Can you post?
Yes, I can do that right now, absolutely.
Great, thanks for this.
Yeah, absolutely. There you go.
Great.
Yeah.
Just going to copy that. All right.
All right. Yeah, have a great day.
You too.